biggest games and breaking down all the biggest games in our area. This is Sports Talk with Kendrick and Dusty on Wave Now. Delivered by Bearno's Pizza. Yeah, it's that good.
Well, hello there, everybody. It has been a while since Kendrick and I had a chance to do Dusty and Kendrick Talk Sports presented by Bearno's Pizza. Of course, we've been super busy over the last really 2 months with the amount that's been going on with U of L and everything going on in that respect. We're very, very fortunate, of course, to be able to talk sports, and everything that's been going on in this world has been nuts. So we decided, why don't we break it down today? And of course, Kendrick will be back here next week. We'll talk a little bit more as well. But we want to thank you guys for joining us. Before we even begin, I just want to say there are many mediums that we are posting this to, and we are currently live as I speak. This will be on Facebook. This is on Twitter. This is also on YouTube. Wherever you may be consuming this video, feel free to comment any questions you have, any topics that you'd like us to talk about, whether it be today or in the near future. We would love to talk about whatever you guys are interested in talking about. I'm also using my phone simultaneously as tweets continue to arise. This has just been a crazy time with all the news going on. So we're going to start out first locally and go wider. Just simply the easiest way to do things here. Let's start with the most recent news of the day. The U of L women's volleyball team, they had quite the ride this season, but they fall just short. Didn't end much more than about 10-15 minutes ago. The U of L women, they fall to Pittsburgh, and their season comes to a close at the Elite Eight. They were one set shy of reaching the Final Four in Tampa, but their ACC foe takes them down. U of L had full control of the match as well, up 2-0, but Pitt caught fire of late. Of course, they had their home field advantage, and at the end of the day, it was Pitt to walk away with the victory. Now, when you look at UK volleyball, they also fell one round short of that. They fell to Arkansas. So both of our local schools falling to rivals within their own conference. Arkansas, obviously, in the SEC as well, and Pitt in the ACC. But two great seasons for both programs. Of course, U of L with aspirations of reaching the national title. They fall just short this afternoon at the hands of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh as well. We're going to also move on then to college football. And I just wanted to quickly talk about this because we didn't really have a chance throughout the week to talk about this. U of L football has had quite the ride this year. And of course, they fall at the hands of Florida State in the ACC title. And then you look at what's happened after that. Florida State, of course, gets left out of the college football playoff. U of L playing them to a 16-6 loss. I think a big reason why Florida State didn't get in is simply because U of L and Florida State didn't show that they had potent offenses. And that's a reason, of course, cited by the committee. There have been many opinions about this. U of L, of course, they now turn their attention to their bowl game. They will face USC. And needless to say, this is not the same USC team that played earlier this year. Caleb Williams has opted out. Jerry Rice's son, Brendan, is also opting out for the NFL. It's going to be interesting to see what U of L players do. We talked to Jeff Brom earlier this week. He basically stated that he does not believe any of his players are opting out, but that, of course, remains to be seen at this time. The two squads go head-to-head. That will be on December the 27th in the Holiday Bowl. That is in San Diego. As for UK, they've got a pretty interesting matchup. Obviously, coming off that big win against U of L, they will now face U of L's ACC opponents. It will be Clemson that they go head-to-head against. Clemson had an interesting year. They didn't start out particularly sharp, and now all of a sudden they're riding somewhat of a hot streak going into this matchup, including a victory over South Carolina. That's a team, of course, UK did not defeat on the road. Clemson's a very talented team, ranked number 22 in the country, and it seems like they've kind of found their groove a little bit. With that being said, this is also going to be a different looking game for both teams because Clemson's going to have a number of players elect for the NFL draft. And it seems like Ray Davis may also be doing that. We don't have that confirmed just yet, but Mark Stoops saying in his press conference that there is the possibility that his star running back decides to sit this thing out and go to the NFL. Those teams kick off in the Gator Bowl. That will be in Jacksonville, Florida. And that is set for December the 29th. On to college basketball. I just kind of want to start with this because this is the pressing deal of the day locally. The U of L men are in a really, really poor spot right now. And Kenny Payne has got to turn the phone off at the moment because things are not looking good. U of L, of course, today falling to DePaul, a team with one win heading into the day. It was not pretty across the board. At one point, DePaul had double-digit leads back and forth. You know, they almost blew it against the U of L team late there. But when you're down 16 points with under 2 minutes left, there's not a lot of room for hope there for U of L fans. If you look at the overall matchup, there is no reason why U of L should have lost this game. It shouldn't have even been particularly close, considering U of L has strung together a couple really solid games. Even the loss to Virginia Tech, that was a road game, and they kind of battled back and forth until a couple late breaks that just didn't fall their way, a couple late fouls. This one was completely different. You talk about the Blue Demons taking full control in the first half. And it just, at this point, you have to wonder, is Kenny Payne's job really getting closer to an end here? We don't know, but at this point, this can't be accepted, right? Like, this is not acceptable, what is happening out there. And while you're talking about, well, he's still relatively new-ish to the program, right? I mean, of course, this is year 2. These are still his guys that he recruited, right? And they're just not playing even marginally close to the expectations. Whatever those expectations may have been, it is well below that. And a team that, of course, won only 4 games a year ago, you're expecting that by today, that is already improved upon. That should have been their 5th win right there. It wasn't. And now you just have to wonder, are we, checking Twitter every 5 seconds to see if there's a coaching move? What is the point in time, which is the breaking point for U of L administration? That is the real question at the moment. Us as reporters, we can only report on what we see. And what we saw today wasn't good. I mean, to be honest, it was just not pretty in the slightest. U of L struggling immensely against a team that, they've had some success on offense, but this is also on KenPom, ranked the 212th team in the country. Okay, so you're talking about one of the worst teams truly in the country. When we talked to Kenny Payne in his press conference leading up to this game, he said that while DePaul struggles to win games, they do have a formidable offense. That's just completely not true, considering the fact that they weren't even able to win out against teams that are far below the stature of what U of L should be at. It's concerning. It is very concerning. This team has not put together a quality performance really since the Empire Classic. I mean, if you look at what happened in New York, they stepped up, they got up. Those games they faced against Texas and IU, probably, you could argue they should have won both of them. But at the very least, the Texas game, just a bad break. It seems like the approach of getting up for a big game, this team doesn't necessarily lack. But getting up to play against anybody in the country, there's something that's not right. And you could talk about it being a cultural issue. Of course, you had the issue with Ty Lure and the tights, and I know that was funny and all, but when you have a player that legitimately is considering sitting out of a game because of the clothing he's wearing, and granted, we've heard from players like Peyton Siva that, there could be something that was obviously dealing with his injury, that maybe he wasn't ready to go out there due to the injury as well. We don't know. There's a lot of speculation, but it just seems like a lot of the pieces aren't coming together there for U of L, and losing to DePaul, whether it's a road or a home game, doesn't really matter. Going to overtime with New Mexico State, just some of these games, losing to Chattanooga at home, you have to wonder, how long is this leash? How long is the leash for Kenny Payne? And I can't answer that for you. I can't answer. I can only just float these thoughts out there. So do me a favor. Feel free to comment your thoughts. Where is Kenny Payne at next week? Where is he at in a month? Is he with this team at the end of the season? I don't know. I really don't know. And that's for U of L to figure out down the road here. As for UK, they got a pretty quality win today over Penn. You're talking about a team that lost to UNC Wilmington earlier, and that was obviously an upset at home that I don't think anybody saw coming. But you also saw Aaron Bradshaw step up today in a big way. I think when you get back a healthy Bradshaw, when you see big men on the court for that team, they do look scary. And UK is obviously the aspirations, the expectations are reaching a national title. There was a lot of talk about, is this team, the good old Kentucky team of the past, right? Reed Shepherd has stepped up in a big way. DJ Wagner made a couple plays today as well. Like, it seems to start at least coming together a little bit more for this team, especially when you get Bradshaw on the court. Excited to see what they do down the stretch. Really hoping to see them during SEC play, really how they stack up week in, week out, day in, day out. That should be intriguing as they get healthy. Kevin Anderson, Alan McNear, thank you guys for your comments. Alan, hello. Kevin saying Kenny needs to go. There's your thought of one of the folks out there right now. And I'm sure many other people are probably saying the same thing. You just have to wonder, is that going to happen this season? Is it going to happen this week? Is it going to happen this month? Or is it going to happen? Right? Like, we don't know. But that seems like that's a common thought amongst a lot of the fan base. One other thing to touch on college basketball wise, IU. They came out with some heat early on against Auburn, and then things kind of fell for them later in the game. Auburn turned the wheels quickly, and Auburn put up a big 3 spot on the scoreboard there, beating them in a game where honestly it seemed like IU was outmatched in the second half. Auburn winning 104-76. This is still early on in the year. This is not something IU fans should necessarily sit there and completely panic about. But it does show that while you've got stars like Khalil Ware out there on the court, and while you've got quality talent, they've got their work cut out for them as well. And obviously Auburn, quality SEC foe, wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of team as a tournament team. So nothing really to hang the hat on there. Obviously disappointing when you lose by that final, but there's definitely room for improvement. Okay, one other massive topic to talk about today, and there's definitely a few people on Twitter I know that are watching this for probably this sole reason. There are a lot of baseball fans out there, and during this time of the year we talk all football, all basketball. The one thing that we talk about with baseball really during this time until the regular season starts is any key free agents. Of course, you saw Juan Soto traded to the New York Yankees. That was a big deal. But Shohei Ohtani, if you haven't heard this news yet, you're going to hear it now. He has signed the biggest contract in North American sports. He signed a deal for 10 years worth $700 million with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I think a lot of people saw the player to the team coming. What a move it is for the Dodgers. I mean, you're talking about Andrew Friedman sitting back. You know that he's been waiting on this move for a long time. And, he's had his eye on Ohtani since he came over from Japan. And the biggest deal, if I can explain one thing to people that may not know too much about the situation, about the contract, there is a lot of money, according to Jeff Passan, that's deferred in this. What that means is that even though it's a 10-year deal worth $700 million, he's not being paid out $70 million a year. It sounds, according to Passan at least, that it's going to be closer to $40 to $50 million a year, which, oh man, what a bummer making that much money per year. I don't know how you live with that. A lot of the money, though, is going to be deferred so that way the Dodgers, while they're going to have to pay it down the road, they can at least have some payroll to maybe make a move or two out there. So curious to see what happens down the stretch here with Ohtani. But Shohei Ohtani, the baseball unicorn, the pitcher, the hitter, essentially our modern day Babe Ruth, is headed to the other team in LA, the true team in LA, because if you look at a map, the Angels are in Anaheim. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. But Shohei Ohtani going to Los Angeles, huge move for baseball as well, because I want you to think about this. We're not just talking about just a guy that is good at the game. You're talking about a guy that is revolutionary to a sport and to the entire world as a whole. He comes over from Japan. He has a fan base out there. He now has a fan base in the United States, and he's going to the second largest market in the entire country and to the team that dominates that market. Let's be honest, the Dodgers making the playoffs as many years as they have consecutively, and Ohtani's never made the playoffs once with the LA Angels. He goes to the Dodgers. He now joins Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and a team that, of course, still has World Series aspirations. Should be intriguing to see what happens down there in LA. This is a big day for sports in general, because now you sit here and as an athlete, you're watching baseball players making this kind of money. What does that say about NFL, NBA players? What does that say about the other players in the MLB? What if we get another two-way star? Are we going to see this kind of dollar amount thrown out again? I mean, we saw Mike Trout at that just a few years ago, signing a record-breaking contract for just north of $400 million. So you're talking about Ohtani is basically making another 300 mil off this. It's crazy. And on top of that, the marketing that LA is going to be able to do now, where you're going to have a Japanese market, it is quite unbelievable. So whether you live in Louisville, whether you live in Los Angeles, wherever you may be, that is a huge deal. And know the name, because you might be surprised just walking around the newsroom saying Shohei Ohtani signed. How many people I had to tell, like, who is this guy? He is a unicorn. And if there's ever a reason to get up and watch baseball in March, and there will be, because the Dodgers season starts with the Padres in South Korea, that is at least one unbelievable and 700 million reasons why you should be watching. He will not pitch this upcoming year. He had Tommy John surgery, but he will be back next year to pitch. He will fully be able to bat and obviously pick up from his MVP season, which he had this past year, by the way, with the Angels, where they basically could not have used any more talent for the least. It's unfortunate what's happening in Anaheim, but I must go on with other topics. So if you're a Dodgers fan, you are probably crying tears of joy today. If you are a Toronto Blue Jays fan, a Giants fan, really a fan of any of the Dodgers rivals, or in the Blue Jays case, a team that thought they were going to get Ohtani, you are probably rather disappointed, and understandably so. So with that being said, here in Louisville, I just want to point out real quickly one more time, because I don't think I can specify this enough. There is going to be a search for Kenny Payne. I feel like I think that you got to keep an eye on the name on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it. Keep an eye on what happens there, because that is huge. What happened today? You can't lose on the road at DePaul. You just can't. The one win in the season, and you call yourself not only a Power 5 program, but a proud Power 5 that has aspirations of being one of the best programs in the country. You do not lose to DePaul, whether it's on the road, whether it's at home. Another key takeaway, bowl games, bowl season in general. It's going to look different, guys. It's going to look very different, because we're talking about a lot of these players opting out. We're talking about the issues with Florida State being left out of the playoff. How does that kind of felt across the ACC? Does that feel like a jab to them? I even asked Jeff Brom that, and he basically, without saying this word for word, he essentially said Florida State going undefeated should have been there, right? So I think some of these coaches are feeling it. That's a key takeaway, and I just wonder. I wonder what's going to happen down the stretch here. Is there some concern for the ACC possibly, with the fact that a perfect team in the ACC still can't go to the playoff? We do expand to 12 teams, but remember, seeding is also going to be important in that 12 seed playoff. So what if we get in this scenario next year where a team is perfect in the ACC and they still aren't one of the top 4 teams? That means they have to play for their playoff lives, while a team like Alabama with one loss, is handed a bye, right? Like, I mean, we're talking about how the playoff is going to be so much better next year. Well, hold on, because there's a real shot that we still have some serious chaos. And so I'm curious to see what happens down the stretch here. Some good news for U of L and for UK, by the way. Here's one number 12 for Texas Tech that will be coming. And here's the number 12 for Georgia. You have Tyler Shuck coming out of Texas Tech. And you have Brock Vandegrift coming out from Georgia. Those two transferring. Shuck going to U of L, Vandegrift going to UK. It seems like those two schools have figured out their quarterback situation at the moment. Obviously, you look at these two guys, kind of different resumes. Shuck, it's hard to believe this. There he is on senior day, as you see. He will be heading into his 7th season, which is quite impressive. He's been riddled with injuries. He played at Oregon originally. Speaking of Oregon, played against them this year with Texas Tech, then transferred to Texas Tech. Meanwhile, Brock Vandegrift was just the second on the depth chart behind Carson Beck, and he's going to be given a great opportunity to start at UK. So should be intriguing to see what these two guys can do. I think the most interesting part about this is the number of players in the transfer portal. Now, don't quote me on this. I just know that that number is close to 3,000. I don't know if the number is at or over 3,000 at the moment of players that are enrolled in the transfer portal at this time, but there are a heck of a lot. And it seems to me that teams that are really finding success on the field are the ones that are dominating the transfer portal. And that's why you saw U of L with such a quick turnaround this season, because Jeff Brom comes over and he brings in, half of a new team. You see Dion taking a one-win Colorado team to some kind of relevance. Now, I know that they kind of faltered towards the end there, but nobody can sit here and deny that that was a better team this year than it was last year significantly. And so the transfer portal is playing a role in that. You saw 2 years ago, I'm going to toot my alma mater's own horn, TCU. And TCU brought in quite a few key transfers. And the way that they were able to shake things up with the arrival of Sonny Dykes really was incredible to watch, because you're talking about a team that was picked 7th to finish in the Big 12, go to the national championship. And we don't talk about what happened in the national championship. We talk about everything that leads up to it. But you get my point, that transfers matter, right? And so I'm curious to see what happens with both Mark Stoops and Jeff Brom as they continue to navigate this transfer portal. It'll be more intriguing, I think, on the Jeff Brom side, just simply because this is his actual first full off season with U of L. And curious to see what he targets, what he does. Obviously, these two teams, though, making significant moves to get their potential starting quarterbacks this upcoming season, and both coming out of the transfer portal. So, Kendrick and I haven't had a chance to do this very often. We're going to try and do this more frequently now that football has kind of obviously slowed down significantly for us. I think I do need to mention one other thing that just came to my mind, too. We haven't had a lot of time to do this because high school football also was a key playmaker for us and in getting us out in the field and kind of away from this studio that we have right here. And shout out to Trinity and to Cal. You're talking about two programs that obviously have enjoyed the championship success. Trinity has enjoyed it 28 times now. Cal has enjoyed it back-to-back seasons. There is a reason why they are having this kind of success. You look at Trinity first, way to establish the run. Clint Sansbury, such a talent there. The running back situation, incredible. I still am amazed that a freshman quarterback in Zane Johnson was able to pull off what he did this year. He beat St. X twice, which is obviously very, very difficult to do. It's hard to beat a good team once. Try to beat a good St. X team twice. He did that. And then they go to the title and they battle adversity initially against Bryan Station, a team that they had faced earlier in the year that eliminated them the year before. And the moment that they turned the corner and flipped the script in the score in the second quarter, they never turned back. They established the run game. They spread out the run, or they spread out the passing game with the running game as well. They were able to get open guys. Lucas Sasser was one that was a key receiver on that team. And obviously you look at, I think at the end of the day, a team that got better and better every week. Then you go to Cal, holy weapons. I mean, really, they have weapons everywhere. Cole Hodge, incredible talent at quarterback, and expect his brother to take over that position, Connor Hodge, next year. You talk about the running game with Jeffrey Vazana. I loved saying Jeffrey Vazana goes bananas because that's what he did in that game, in the running game. And overall, when you see what they did, able to win the title, they just honestly, they're a truck. They ran through everybody. It wasn't even marginally close. great success on both sides of the ball. A name that I want y'all to watch is Garyon Hobbs. Freshman this year. He played defense. He also did a little bit of running back. I think that he's going to be a key playmaker for them moving forward. Obviously, Connor Hodge is a key name to watch as well. But, man, what a job done by both Jay Cobb and Hunter Cantwell. Just incredible job by both of those coaches. It's been a pleasure to work with them, and pleasure to work with all the coaches, the players. This was my first year here in Louisville, and honestly, so grateful just to have the opportunity to meet some of these people. Great folks out here. As a California kid coming over to this part of the country, it's not an easy place, initially to kind of settle, just because it's so different, right? And I'll say it was actually the easiest transition it possibly could have been, and it's because of the people and the place. And so I'm very grateful for that. But that basically puts a wrap on the high school football season. College football season obviously not over. We have bowl season coming up, but it is going to look different until the playoff. You have Alabama versus Michigan in the Rose Bowl. You have Texas versus Washington in the Sugar Bowl. U of L facing off against USC in the Holiday Bowl, and you have UK facing off against Clemson. That will be in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, and interested to see what happens there. Also, the Toastery Bowl. Don't forget about that, because WKU playing Old Dominion in that should be a good one in Charlotte. But yes, that puts a cap on essentially what we've tried to cover over the last few weeks for you. As I mentioned, we do, Kendrick and I do, I feel like, our best to go out there and get all the stories to tell, and try to tell the best stories possible during this time of year when you have the crossover of football, basketball, volleyball, baseball off season, right? Like, it gets crazy. And so we appreciate y'all watching, staying with us. Very thankful for our viewers. And if there is a story you want us to cover, feel free to reach out to us, because we're more than happy to do that. And shout out one more time to U of L volleyball, because what a year they had. Man, they were a special group. And you talk about if that fifth set goes differently, we're talking, hey, we're going to Tampa this week, and U of L with a chance to win a national championship. So it's a shame how that ended for them, but man, what a ride. Danny Busboom Kelly, she's got a machine going there, and just impressed by what she's been able to accomplish. Fun team to cover. Anna DeBeer, incredible. You had Charity Looper that stepped up in a big way. Iko Jones. I mean, that list, Kara Cressy, like I was just very impressed by a number of those players. The team as a whole came together really well. And, obviously when you come short of a national title, that doesn't feel good. But man, this team was good enough, I think, to be able to win one. So whether you take that as they should have been there, or man, it would be cool if they should have been there or could have been there, I just look at it as, what a ride, right? What a ride for them this year. And they have a lot to be proud of, because this was a very successful year for them. So with that being said, thank you for watching our sports update here. As I mentioned, Kendrick Haskins and I will be back together here next week, aiming to do this on Thursdays. Shout out to Beer Nose Pizza for being our sponsor, and a place I probably will be going to right after this, because that sounds really good right now. I'm not going to lie. Long day calls for a big pizza from Beer Nose Pizza. If you have a hard time finding them, it's not that hard. I promise. They're in the heart of downtown Louisville, right next to the KFC Yum Center, the best place to go to before you see a basketball game, a volleyball game, whatever it may be. That is the place to go. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch a little bit of Wave Sports here. I'm Dusty Baker. Catch me on Twitter at Dusty Baker TV. Catch Kendrick Haskins at Kendrick Haskins as well. And we'll be back here next week. Until then, catch my sportscast tonight at 11. Try to find some place to stay in shelter, as it is raining outside. You're going to be hearing from Jessica Dobson a heck of a lot more today, as it is also an alert day here at Wave News, as we have these storms passing by in the area. With that being said, I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Catch you tonight at 11. Have a great rest of your evening. And remember, we got you covered here at Wave Sports. Take care.
Breaking down all the biggest games in our area. This is Sports Talk with Kendrick and Dusty on Wave.